The curse continues for the Indianapolis Colts as they lose another one to the Jaguars in Jacksonville. Is there any hope at all for this Colts defense? And what's to make of Joe Flacco's big day? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Indianapolis Colts on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined here by my partner in crime at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, yesterday, not good for this Colts defense. I think that's the major storyline of the day. There's a lot of people on the outside trying to make a case that Joe Flacco should be the starting quarterback for the Colts. Really, we're not going to entertain that because we know that's not true. But this defense, Drake, this defense was abysmal yesterday. And the Colts, besides putting up 34 points, the most they have all season, they still lost as this Colts defense inevitably let this Colts team down again on Sunday.
Yeah, and when you hear that they scored all those points, they looked so good offensively, despite the fact that you don't have definitely your most explosive playmaker on the field, it just really speaks volumes to the other side of the ball when you still lose. 34-37, you're really not supposed to lose if you score 30-plus points. Or I guess if it's just a shootout back and forth and both offenses are just lighting it up, but the defenses are trying, a little more exciting than the approach Gus Bradley had. So I think that we're going to get into this whole game. We're obviously going to talk about both sides of the ball, but if there was one word that had to sum all this up, it's just disappointing.
Yeah, because, the difference between week 4 against the Steelers and week 5 against the Jaguars, obviously the Colts are playing at home, but they're missing Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. Those guys don't play defense. The only defender that was out, that was a difference, was Tyquan Lewis. The rest of those injuries had already been there, and they still went out and at least beat the Steelers, held them to, I don't even remember the score, but it wasn't 37 points, So this Colts team, this defense, we were going to dive right into it and talk about everything, not just the defense, but of course, but the offense as well. But it was not a good day for the Colts defense, and I think everyone needs to take a look in the mirror if they want to right this ship. Otherwise, this defense is going to be one of the worst in the NFL all season long. Let's look at the chat. The CFO is back, Patrick. He listened to our show on Spotify, and he told me the reason he wasn't there live is because he was getting a puppy for his family. So honestly, a pretty good excuse. So congrats to the Wire family.
Not like Stats Matt.
Exactly. Thanks to Patrick for the super chat, buddy. Really appreciate it. He goes, week 5, he's summing it up. Nick effing Cross is an animal, and you are all dumb. He's saying that's what Chris Ballard is saying right now. The rookie offensive line continues to surprise. Gus Bradley whack-a-mole defense continues, and wonder if people are going to shut the F up about Alec Pierce yet. So Patrick has a lot more comments in the chat because he may not be in here this evening. He also says the Colts had 16 missed tackles versus the Jaguars per PFF. That's just one of the contributing factors to this porous showing by the Colts defense on Sunday. Tanner Bortolini, though, 50 pass snaps, 0 pressures. Ryan Kelly's contract drying up quick. So there's a lot of takeaways that you could look at this game. We're going to dive into all of it. Thanks a lot, Patrick, for all of your support. Lindsey Mack, another fantastic supporter. Good to see you, my friend. Really didn't want to lose that game. Defense has or definitely have some stuff to work, but some positives, though. Al Clutch Pierce, not Alec, Al Clutch Pierce, proving again that he is an unsuspecting weapon. Looking forward to catching the show tomorrow. Probably because Lindsey is across the pond and he's probably sleeping at this point. But Lindsey, we appreciate all of your support. Addison saying, I'm afraid that Ballard and Bradley will be able to convince Irsay that the product on the field wouldn't be as bad if not for the injuries, and it will buy them another year. Well, Addison, I can tell you this right now: Chris Ballard is not getting fired after the season. The timeline reset for Chris Ballard when Shane Steichen and it was hired when Anthony Richardson was drafted. So this isn't really year 8 of Chris Ballard. This is kind of year 2 of the second tenure of Chris Ballard, and people are just going to have to accept that. Gus Bradley, probably a different story. We'll talk about that in the show tonight as well. Stats, Matt, what's up? Not the defensive rating of the Colts, that's for sure. Wow, we got to get healthy and hope that at least salvages something for this year. If not, yikes. Yeah, I agree there, Stats, Matt. We have Truitt as well. I want to cry, but we'll laugh instead. A lot of Colts fans, I think, are taking on that attitude. Then we've got Nathan say, boys, I know AR is a starter, but do you let Flacco play against the Titans? We'll talk about that when we talk about Flacco's performance tonight, because I think Drake and I have the same answer on this one. But guys, if you haven't, please go follow us on all of our socials. Facebook, YouTube, X. Go follow them all. You've heard it before. You know where to go find them. Make sure you hit that bell on YouTube so that way while you're subscribed, you know when Drake and I go live every single time, whether it's Monday and Thursdays like normals, breaking news episodes, you're not going to miss us. And then wherever you listen to podcasts, please subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. Drake, let's dive right into it. The curse definitely continued for the Indianapolis Colts with the loss 37-34. Wasn't pretty, and it really starts with the defensive side of the ball. Jake, they just imploded. 497 yards allowed to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and when you look at that, it's really astounding to see that it was against this Jacksonville Jaguars defense or offense that hasn't done anything all season long. This offense has been really bad all season long, and the Colts almost allowed 500 yards for this team. And here's the thing too, the explosives all over the place. The Colts allowed 3 plays of over 60 yards yesterday. And when we hear Gus Bradley talk, we hear Shane Steichen talk, one of the biggest things this defense is supposed to prevent is the explosive plays. It's why they play a lot of deep zone coverage to try to prevent against that. That was not the case yesterday, as this secondary got tore up by Trevor Lawrence on the way to him throwing for a career high 371 yards, 2 touchdowns, and the interception. Drake, let's start right there with this passing defense. I don't really know what to say, because it was awful pretty much all day long. Yes, Nick Cross had an interception. Yes, Jalen Jones had a couple of PBUs that were really good. But outside of that, it was just, pick your poison. Wherever Trevor Lawrence wanted to go with the football, he went there, and it was pretty easy for the Jaguars all day long.
Yeah. So Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Kirk, 9 catches for a grand total of 210 receiving yards. Thomas 122, Kirk 88. We're not talking top heavy. I mean, both of these guys roasted the Colts defense. The only thing the Colts defense did was show that Trevor Lawrence underthrew a ball, which Cross intercepted, and Jalen Jones knocked the ball free from Gabe Davis, who stinks without Josh Allen. So it's like those are the only 2 things that they did. It's abysmal. I mean, where the hell did Tank Bigsby come from? This guy's basically the running back now. He also dominated, but Travis Etienne just kind of took a back seat. Well, what did they do with him? Turn him into a receiving back. He had 6 catches for 43 yards. I mean, I think it was, where was it? Oh, right here. CBS Sports' Josh Breach said this beautifully. The Jags had 3 plays in the game that went over 60 yards, just like you mentioned. And when you're giving up that many home runs in the NFL, you are going to lose. So that's why you get 37 points when you scored 34 offensively. And when you look at this performance from Trevor Lawrence, I know he threw a pick, but man, he was like 53%, 28 for 34 for 371. I actually will take pride in posting this on X. I said the best friend of Trevor, or I said the best friend for Trevor Lawrence is a Gus Bradley led defense. I mean, easy completions, rhythm, let him get confidence from beginning to end. That is exactly what happened.
Yeah, we even said this on Thursday, that we were afraid that there wouldn't be any changes to this defense, and the Jaguars were going to start by peppering the Colts with those quick throws. I think our good friend Noah Compton put out there on X that according to NFL Next Gen stats, Trevor Lawrence was getting rid of the football in about 2.5 seconds. 2.56, something like that. And that's hard for any pass rush to be able to get to the quarterback. Now, the pass rush is not free from blame here, because Trevor Lawrence did hold the football for longer than that on some throws, and the Colts got one pressure all day long. I know they were without DeForest Buckner, they're without Tyquan Lewis, they're without Kwity Paye yesterday, but those guys get paid too. Latu, Dio Dangbo, Grover Stewart, Raekwon Davis, all of these guys out there, this entire Colts defensive line, one pressure all day long, that's got to step up. That's just not good enough. And I understand that the Jaguars were getting the football out quickly. Trevor Lawrence was doing a lot of his checkdowns. They were doing a lot of quick throws. That was the game plan from the jump. We knew that's what the game plan was going to be from the jump. But on those other ones, you got to get pressure on the quarterback, and it's not just the Colts did blitz sometimes yesterday. So you can, if you want to credit Gus Bradley for anything, he did blitz a little bit. Sure. Still didn't impact the game. And in fact, on those blitzes, that's where Trevor Lawrence actually did his best work, still getting the football out quickly and allowing his receivers to just go to work. And I think it's just I think it's frustrating for a lot of Colts fans because, Drake, if you and I know what the game plan is going to be against the Jaguars, you would expect the Colts defensive coaches and the guys game planning to know what this game plan is going to be and what the Jaguars are going to try to do. But the Colts didn't change. And I think that's what is so frustrating for a lot of Colts fans is what it's going to be, but to not do anything to change that, to not play more aggressive coverage, to have secondary players who look like they don't know what they're doing. Again, multiple miscommunications in the secondary. Why is this constantly happening with this group? And then a Gus Bradley defense, why is there so many miscommunications in the secondary? That shouldn't be a thing, especially year 3 of the system. It's not like the Colts have new guys in the system. They've been in the system for a while now. We have Jalen Jones stuttering on a go route where Christian Kirk didn't even try to double move, but Jalen Jones just kind of stops and allows Christian Kirk to blow by him. Dallas Flowers, why are you cheating down on that route, on that curl route, that hitch route, when that's Nick Cross's zone? You have the deep zone, and he tries to cheat down. Goodbye, Brian Thomas Jr., 85-yard touchdown. That's why Dallas Flowers is no longer an Indianapolis Colt. He got cut today. So, yes, there needs to be more pressure, but ultimately, Drake, I think the biggest thing that cost the Colts the game was the play of the secondary and Gus Bradley not adjusting to what this Jaguars offense was going to do. He knew what we all knew what the Jaguars were going to do. And simply put, Gus Bradley didn't care. He stuck to what he normally does, didn't change up a thing, and ultimately got burned for almost 500 yards yesterday. It's just inexcusable. And I think that's why Colts fans are just so fed up with seeing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, career high for most passing yards in a game for Trevor Lawrence too. Mm-hmm. And when you don't sack the guy at all, who was getting sacked 3 times a game, coming into this contest and just looked absolutely hapless. It's weird that this defense is what makes Trevor Lawrence. It's almost like he walked in to Jacksonville and just said, oh man, you know what? Or he woke up that morning and was like, we're playing Gus Bradley. This is going to be okay. So I think that a couple of those plays, obviously, like you mentioned, were miscommunication, but you also have to throw in, like Patrick mentioned, bad tackling, bad reads, just not changing from the coaching perspective. There were some blitzes, but man, you look at EJ Speed's 6 missed tackles. It's like, what if he does get through? Good chance he whiffs the tackle. So, I mean, everybody is to blame defensively. But when you do have this big of a collapse and you have almost a meme of Dallas Flowers completely outstretched like Superman trying to catch Brian Thomas Jr., you have to look at the defensive coordinator and the coaching. So it does start with Gus Bradley.
I mean, hell, that's literally the thumbnail for our episode tonight, guy. I
It
picked
is.
that picture for a reason, guys, because I think that summed up what we saw yesterday from this Colts defense. Stats Matt says the worst part is he kind of echoes what we said. A lot of short routes with missed tackles, Flowers biting on the routes, and miscommunication. I complained about the pass rush, but Jacksonville was getting the ball out fast. Yeah, a lot of missed tackles too. We saw the stat that Patrick put up earlier. I'll throw it up here again. 16 missed tackles according to Pro Football Focus, 6 by EJ Speed. That's got to be better. That's got to be better. If you're a starting linebacker in the NFL, you can't have 6 missed tackles in one game. Has to be better. Nick Cross, for all that Nick Cross has done well this year, 3 missed tackles. Has to be better. Julian Blackman with 2, Zaire Franklin, Adetomo Adebawore, Grover Stewart, Chris Lamons, and Adam Gotsis all with 1. You can deal with 1 or 2, I think.
Sure.
Can't have the whole team do that, obviously, but you could deal with, I would say, if you're hearing the 3 to 4 missed tackles as a team, then I think that's okay. 16, you're not going to win a game and have very much success on defense if you have 16 missed tackles. And I think this is becoming a theme too, Drake. This isn't
Sure.
With Gus Bradley. This isn't something that we're just now talking about. It seems like that since he became defensive coordinator, the Colts have had a problem with missed tackles. They didn't really have a problem with missed tackles when Matt Eberflus was here. With Chuck Pagano, it seemed like there were missed tackles all over the place. I remember talking about this regularly back then when Chuck Pagano was here. And it was God, I don't even remember the name of the defensive coordinator. It'll come to me. But with Matt Eberflus, there wasn't too many missed tackles. Now with Gus Bradley, you're getting those missed tackles again. I don't really know what the answer is for that. Obviously, it's fun. It goes back to fundamentals and just practicing it and making sure you're using the correct technique. But that's something that's really hurt the Colts, because in this defensive scheme, Drake, what's it all predicated in? Getting those short completions and then rallying to the football and wrapping up the ball carrier. Okay, that's all fine and good, but you got to actually wrap up the ball carrier, because if you miss a tackle, that guy may have only caught the ball for 3 to 4 yards. You miss a tackle, it's going to be 8, 9, 10 yards, and then it defeats the whole purpose of this entire scheme. So it's all just a big mess over there on the defensive side of the ball. Now, I do want to get your opinion on this, and I'll give mine as well, about the injuries, because obviously the Colts are very banged up on the defensive side of the ball, and that does play a role in this. I'll run through. I even sent out a tweet on Saturday of all the stars that were going to blew up unexpectedly. So if you guys retweeted and shared that, hey, thank you for going viral on Saturday. But DeForest Buckner out, Kenny Moore II, Kwity Paye, Tyquan Lewis, Juju Brents, Samson Ebukam. That's 6 different guys that are starters for this team out on Sunday. That makes it very difficult. However, as Patrick brought up to me as well, the Cowboys, or it was either the Stats Matt or Patrick, I forget, but the Cowboys were missing almost their entire defensive line. The Cowboys were missing their top cornerback, and they held the Steelers to 17 points last night. Somehow Mike Pettin made it work. Gus Bradley should be able to make it work too. There should be no reason that this Jaguars defense scores 37. I said that the Jags would win 27 to 24 yesterday or this last week. But there's no reason they should score almost 40 points. It's just inexcusable. And it lays straight at the feet of Gus Bradley and really this entire defense. The players definitely have a role in all of this too.
Yeah, and something that's really interesting about those missed tackles. So you have 23 runs, you have 28 completions, so you have 51 plays. You factor that in, that's like 1 out of every 3 plays, basically. I mean, obviously, the multiple tackles could have been missed on certain plays, but if you look at the math and over a smorgasbord of plays, that's like a third of your plays you're missing the tackle. That's just inexcusable, along with the misreads and the miscommunications. You're bound to lose.
Yeah, thank you, Stats Matt. It was Landon Oliver that posted that on X. Want to give Landon the proper credit. He's one of the good guys, a friend of the show. We love
That's right.
Landon Oliver over here at the Horseshoe Huddle podcast. So thank you for that. But yeah, exactly. You know, it's just and this here's the thing. Something needs to be changed. And I understand that there's not going to be, and I think you guys should all realize this too. There's not going to be a firing mid-season. I would bet money against Gus Bradley being fired in the middle of the season. Not because he doesn't deserve it, because we were clamoring and saying that he should probably be fired after last season. And the Colts kept him. But the thing is, Drake, the guys that would be replacing him, they're all Gus Bradley's guys. You know, Richard Smith, the run game coordinator and linebackers coach, has been with Gus Bradley for years. So is Ron Miles. Charlie Partridge is new. So if you want to make Charlie Partridge the defensive coordinator or elevate him as the defensive coordinator, I guess you could try to do that. But Charlie Partridge has been in the NFL for 5 games. So I don't think that would be exactly the smartest move either. The Colts aren't going to fire Gus Bradley midseason. After the season, I think they definitely should. There's no more excuses. Gus Bradley needs to be out. You're not going to hear the Colts publicly say that, just like Shane Steichen today said he has all the faith in the world in Gus Bradley to turn this around. He's not going to say publicly that this defense sucks, you know, that there's no hope.
Scored 34 and still lost.
Right. You're not going to hear that from the Colts head coach, especially going into week 6. You know, that wouldn't be the best for team morale, certainly. But Drake, what do you think needs to change in this, or what do you think, what changes, realistic changes, I should say, need to be made to this Colts defense this season? Otherwise, you know, or do you think any changes can be made to make this better, or to make this defense serviceable the rest of the way?
You know, I do think that when you put in names like DeForest Buckner and Tyquan Lewis and Samson Ebukam and, you know, Kenny Moore and Kwity Paye and all those guys, it is a different defense. You have way more of a chance to succeed. But you do still have some stars out there. And the example you used, you know, the Colts even were able to, until the fourth quarter, of course, which is typical Gus Bradley, they were able to negate the Steelers despite having a whole bunch of injuries. So they've shown they can do it. Now, it wasn't 17 points, but it was close. It was 24. So it's almost like I don't think you can do too much because you have who you have. They're probably going to elevate a couple practice squad guys because they do need a cornerback. But like, I just don't know what else you can do. The free agent market at this point in any NFL year is just dried up like a desert. So I just think you have to just instill faith that, hey, that was a really stupid, awful performance. I hope Gus Bradley mentioned that to his players and he took accountability for it, because I think that part of you know, the reason Dallas Flowers did get cut is also just because of the whole situation also led to that. So, you know, multiple miscommunications led to that play. So I just think that, I don't really think there's much you can do. I just think that you have to kind of retool, recoup, and just put that behind you, move on to the Titans. There's really not much you can do in week 6.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I do agree, because I don't think there really is much that is going to change. So the only thing that really can change is the players. The players play better. You know, obviously getting healthier will help. Getting DeForest Buckner back later in the season, we don't know his exact status. He is eligible to return after the Titans game. So after next week, DeForest Buckner will be eligible to return. We will see if he actually does against the Miami Dolphins. That's around the kind of the 4-week area, probably 4 to 6 weeks for Buckner. So we'll have to see. Tyquan Lewis, we don't know the timeline. Juju Brents, there's a chance, but again, it's probably a 25% chance. Kenny Moore and Kwity Paye, those guys both you're desperately wanting back. You desperately need them to get back. You need Zaire Franklin to start playing better. Zaire Franklin has not been the same player this year as he's been in the past. You need EJ Speed to continue his pace, but knock down the missed tackles. You know, Julian Blackmon has to play better. We're not seeing any playmaking ability out of Julian Blackmon. That needs to be in there. Jalen Jones is in his second year, and I think Jalen Jones is doing what he can. Same with Nick Cross. These young guys are improving, but they're still going to have some lumps. So I think those guys are just there are what you have right now, and I think that's fine. You know, but you can't have your stars on defense not playing up to their level. And I'm talking about DeForest Buckner when he comes back, which you really don't have a worry about that with Buck. But I'm also talking about Kenny Moore. I'm talking about Zaire Franklin. I'm talking about Kwity Paye. Latu certainly is a part of that too. As a 15th overall pick, there are certain expectations. He needs to step up and start producing more. I know he's a rookie, but it's getting to that point where, we do need to see some more production out of Latu as the season goes along. It's going to be on the players to really take advantage of this because, like you said, the free agent market is dried up. Sam Womack has played well too for a waiver claim. Yes, stats, Matt.
Sure.
I want to make sure that we do talk about Samuel Womack III because he's been fantastic. He's earned that starting spot opposite of Jalen Jones for the foreseeable future, or at least until Jalen or Juju Brents does get back from his injury. But it's got to be the players, because if we're expecting Gus Bradley to change how he's doing it by now, we're kidding ourselves. Gus Bradley's been the same coach forever. He might tweak a little bit. He might do some things a little bit differently, but it's going to be pretty much the same thing, as it always has been. So the players just have to go out there and execute it better. And I don't think real change can be made until the offseason, where Gus Bradley needs to be let go and a new defensive scheme needs to be put in here. And I don't think it needs to be a completely drastic defensive change in defensive scheme, but you need better coaches and someone that is willing to adjust, not someone who is stuck in their ways and isn't going to change no matter the opponent, no matter the situation. Chris Ballard needs to change too. This is 100% on Chris Ballard as well. He needs to be better, needs to not be so confident in his group. I mean, this quote has came out a lot about Chris Ballard before the season, saying that we're confident with our group of DBs and we really like Dallas Flowers. Him coming back is going to be huge. Dallas Flowers is gone after 5 games. So if you were really relying on Dallas Flowers that much after 5 games, it's a terrible look. It is a terrible look. Juju Brents is hurt. You could say you can't bet on injuries. We know Juju Brents has been bad, or as for in terms of injuries, Drake, he hasn't been able to stay on the field. I mean, and then you're looking at your 2 draft picks for the secondary. One's on the practice squad, one's a free agent. Just simply put, without Samuel Womack, if you can imagine if the Colts didn't pick up Sam Womack off waivers, boy, that's bad. That's bad. For all the people that can say, yes, Chris Ballard deserves credit for sticking with Nick Cross, because Nick Cross looks like he's coming into his own and he's going to be a player. And that is fantastic. The cornerback room is atrocious right now. And outside of Jalen Jones and Jalen Jones and Samuel Womack are trying to hold this thing together until Kenny Moore gets back. But outside of that, you got pretty much nothing. And that falls on Gus Bradley, falls on the players, falls on Chris Ballard. All blame is to go around with all of this, Drake. And honestly, it just makes it tough for Colts fans. And I understand the frustration that they have with this defense. But unfortunately, at this point in the season, there's not going to be much they can do to really change this. It's just going to have to be on the group that they already have to get better. And that's all that we can really hope for.
Yeah, and you can also hope for, just kind of the back against the wall type of mentality. You also really do hope that Kenny Moore gets back sooner rather than later. Incredible communicator, great player on the inside. Chris Lamons did what he could against the Steelers, but my goodness, man, I mean, you're talking about night and day there. But yeah, just listen to that. Your 2 outside corners, Sam Womack III, waiver target pickup, Jalen Jones, albeit a dog, a player, a 7th round selection in 2023. So you're just hoping Kenny Moore can stay healthy or that Gus Bradley led cornerback room can just come out fighting against the Titans.
All right, Drake, let's switch gears here. We've been talking about the defense all episode. We got to give the old man his flowers. Joe Flacco went out there and he looked really good yesterday. He really did. Props to Joe Flacco. 33 of 44 for 359 yards, 3 touchdowns. a QBR of 76.7. Joe Flacco was really good yesterday. Now here's the thing. When you look at his whole numbers, Drake, I think people are getting a little bit ahead of themselves when they say that Joe Flacco put on an incredible performance. Yes, Joe Flacco did very, very well. But when you add context to this, the game by Joe Flacco isn't necessarily as great as you might think, because yes, he led up. First drive was absolutely fantastic. Perfect offense, chef's kiss, went right down the field. Josh Downs, Mo Alley Cox, Michael Pittman Jr. hitting darts all over the field. Perfect Joe Flacco. But then after that, there was a lot of just going check downs, a lot of not pushing the football down the field. He didn't push the football down the field, Drake, until really 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Because if you guys didn't notice, Alec Pierce didn't receive a single target. We'll talk about Alec Pierce a little bit, but he didn't receive a single target until the second to last or third to last drive for the Indianapolis Colts. And in the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, Alec Pierce had 3 catches and 134 yards. So before Alec Pierce just absolutely went berserk, Drake, and said, I'm just going to take over this game, just toss it deep, and I will catch it. And that's literally everything that Alec Pierce did. Joe Flacco was sitting there with only 220 yards passing. Around 220 yards passing. So without Alec Pierce just absolutely going nuts in those final 5 minutes, the numbers aren't nearly as good as they would have been had Alec Pierce not just dominated those final 5 minutes. But overall, Drake, I want to get your opinion on this. What do you think of Joe Flacco's performance? Obviously, we'll talk about the so-called QB controversy in a little bit, but what do you think out of Flacco's performance yesterday and what he was able to do for this Colts offense?
Well, on top of that, he had the majestic 21-yard run. I didn't think that was ever going to stop.
Yes. How could I forget? How could I forget that?
Yeah. Look like a thoroughbred with a couple, sore legs. But I do got to say, man, he was a check down god. You're looking at let's just take away Alec Pierce's stats. You've got 30 completions for 225 passing yards. Yeah. And 2 tuds. So, not saying that you can't give the flowers to Joe Flacco, but where a lot of his arm strength we all talk about comes from is the zip he puts on the short passes. Really, he doesn't throw that deep that often. He is not as aggressive as Anthony Richardson. Okay, he does not put that ball down the field and really challenge defense consistently. All right, so I'll give him credit. He played like a veteran backup. He took great care of the ball outside of the fumble, which really wasn't on him. Trayvon Walker destroyed the Colts. But he did everything that you pay him to do. I think that he's a high level backup, and for a 39-year-old, you're damn right he played really good and plays great in Shane Steichen's offense. And honestly, the best benefactor of him was Josh Downs. If you ask me, he had nine catches, 12 targets. I know that Alec Pierce blew up, but from quarter 1 to quarter 4, Josh Downs, he pretty much set the pace for the receivers.
Yeah, and this is why it's so important to have context with this issue. It's because I've seen a lot of people talking online about how Joe Flacco should be. I'm about to sneeze. Sorry, I keep about to hit the mute button because I'm going to sneeze. But Joe Flacco, I've seen a lot of people saying Joe Flacco should be the starting quarterback for the Colts. Guys, that does nothing for this team. Not in the short term or in the long term. In the short term, Joe Flacco, yes, he had a really good game. The Colts still lost, so in the short term, that makes this Colts team what? 8-9 win team at most, and they maybe make the playoffs. If not, they potentially get bounced out as a wild card. You could probably get that with Anthony Richardson, and at the same time, sure, Anthony Richardson is getting those reps. He's getting that live experience that he needs. I know people have been saying, Anthony Richardson should sit and learn behind Flacco. He sat all of last year. This guy doesn't need to sit. What this guy needs is reps, live reps. Again, guys, he's only started 8 games. in his NFL career. He's only started 21 games since high school. This kid doesn't need to sit on the sideline and watch. He's done enough of that. He did that pretty much all last year with Gardner Minshew, soaking everything up. This guy needs to be able to go out there and put it on the field. There is no quarterback controversy in Indianapolis. Shane Steichen said, when Anthony Richardson is ready to go and he's healthy, he's going to be out there. Andy Racer say Flacco's a Super Bowl quarterback. He was a Super Bowl quarterback 12 years ago. He is not a Super Bowl quarterback now. That's when the Ravens won the Super Bowl, not now. So Anthony Richardson has to be out there, because if he's not out there, and Stats Matt says it perfectly, AR needs the game to slow down. That doesn't happen in a practice with a red jersey facing the Colts defense. Certainly, it helps. You have to be out there. You have to be out there getting the reps. So when Anthony Richardson is healthy, you put him out there. You don't have Joe Flacco out there. Yes, Flacco will win you a game. He'll get you to 9-8, and maybe a wild card berth. That's it. The Colts aren't going to win the Super Bowl this year, guys. They were never going to win the Super Bowl this year. It's all about Anthony Richardson's development, because if not, then you still don't. If you put Joe Flacco out there, Joe Flacco could retire as soon as after this season, and then you still don't know what you have fully in Anthony Richardson, and you're prolonging finding that out. This year and next year, it's all about Anthony Richardson's development. And then you can start to make judgments after 2 full seasons with Anthony Richardson at the helm. Then it's fair, I think, to make assumptions and make some judgments about the quarterback. But you can't do that if Richardson's not out on the field. That's why Richardson needs to be out there.
Yes, and look, going back to Joe Flacco being a Super Bowl QB, yes, and it was an incredible year. But like Andrew said, you're talking 12 years ago. And I mean, hell, Aaron Rodgers is a former Super Bowl quarterback, and he almost looked like he couldn't get off of the ground on Sunday. So, I mean, those days are past. Joe Flacco is a safe passer of the football, and plus he had a running offense back then, a really well-oiled running offense and defense. So that's not the case now. Now, when you go over to, Anthony Richardson, man, you're on a rookie contract too. You want him to play on that contract, okay? You want to get the most out of that cheap deal, because as soon as he's due a deal, and if they keep him, boy, oh boy, it'll be like $60 million a year, okay? So you need to get what you can out of Anthony Richardson's cheap deal now, and the best way to do that is to put him out there. You don't hire somebody, have them have them do the job, and then say, you know what? No, we're going to have you shadow again. You don't do that. You let them get through the mistakes. You let them see what they're doing wrong, learn from it. It's the only way that AR is going to do it, is when he's healthy, and he will be, okay? He's going to be out there. Number 5 will start. Or excuse me. Yeah, number 5.
Yeah, no, not number 15.
That's Flacco.
Flacco. Number 5. He does need to be out there. There's no quarterback controversy. And I think what Joe Flacco has shown, he's just, honestly, guys, he's doing exactly what the Colts brought him in to do. Be a really good backup quarterback. Be one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league. So if Anthony Richardson does go down and has to miss a game here or there, you can rely on Flacco to go in there and keep you competitive. Joe Flacco was not brought in here to lead the Colts offense to a Super Bowl. He was brought in here to be the backup in case of emergency. It's like that they break glass in case of emergency. That's Joe Flacco. If Anthony Richardson goes down and he cannot play, you still have a chance to win that football game with Joe Flacco, because he is one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. And Drake, I think moving forward, the Colts need to have a very good high-end backup quarterback, because you saw how valuable it was last year with Gardner Minshew. You're seeing it now with Joe Flacco. That just needs to be the standard, because when you have a quarterback like Anthony Richardson that's going to have a high risk of getting hurt and injuries happening, you need to invest in that position and have a better backup quarterback. So just in case he does go down like that, you have someone that can step in, keep the offense afloat, and keep you competitive. That's what Joe Flacco was doing. And I think, anything to suggest anything else, you're either not paying attention to what the goal of this team is, you're not being realistic with your expectations of this team, or you just don't want to see Anthony Richardson succeed. It's pretty much that simple.
Yeah, and look, obviously fans want to see the team win. Okay, it's not fun to watch your team lose, and you don't
Right.
want to watch the Colts lose. But I mean, it's different. You can't just look at it as a right here, right now mentality. This team around Joe Flacco, they are young. All right, he is by far the oldest guy. I think he's as old, if not older, than Shane Steichen. All right, or like at the same age. I mean, Flacco is like here, and then you got Kelly at 31 or so. I mean, so it's overall a pretty young team, and you want Richardson to grow with Downs and Michael Pittman Jr. and A.D. Mitchell, for the love of God, he needs to grow with somebody. You want Richardson out there to build this rapport with all these guys. Flacco has been in the league for almost 2 decades. He's probably not even going to be a Colt next year. It's just one of those things where he's here for now to help, bridge the gap from when Richardson is out to when he returns.
Yeah, exactly. And we can't go this episode without talking about Alec Pierce. Drake, just an absolute menace in the final 5 minutes, 3 catches, 134 yards and a touchdown. Why did it take so long to get Alec Pierce involved in the game plan? I think a lot of fans were asking that. Shane Steichen after the game was talking about how the Jaguars did play a lot of shell coverage. Yes, they did do that, but I still think Alec Pierce needs to be more involved. Obviously, they only have the football for a certain amount of time. Joe Flacco was using the running backs a lot more than they're typically used. Trey Sermon had 6 catches yesterday. Tyler Goodson 3. So 9 out of the 33 completions for Joe Flacco went to running backs yesterday. So that's a lot. That's a lot, but at the same time, I think Alec Pierce does need to be more involved. We got a super chat here real quick, and it's from, look who it is. Glad you finally showed back up. It's from Tom Brady. Tom Brady, hope you're enjoying the the time as a Fox analyst now. You need some work there, buddy. Your football life is definitely better than your announcer life. I'll say that. But Tom Brady said Flacco played well. He beat me a couple of times in the playoffs, so forget him. I see Tom Brady, the same Tom Brady that we always know, keep holding grudges. So, but hey, we appreciate all of your support, you good-looking SOB. Tom Brady, always great to see him join the show. But Drake, what do you think about Alec Pierce's performance yesterday, and how do you think the Colts should incorporate Alec Pierce more in this offense?
He had an explosive fight. He had an explosive end to the game when it absolutely mattered. I mean, he was scoring. He scored when they needed it, and he honestly pretty much had 2 touchdowns, but he dropped right in front of the end zone. So, I mean, he was absolutely on fire, but I want to see some more Alec Pierce on some short routes where maybe he has an opportunity to run. I want to see a little bit more involvement from a volume perspective. I know that Pierce is a deep threat, but Andrew, he has taken the biggest leap maybe of any wide receiver because Josh Downs looked good last year and looks great now. Pierce looked non-existent in 2022, looked non-existent last year. Now he is the premier go-to explosive player. Okay, so like I'm impressed, but I do want to see some more consistency and like as far as like some more catches, not everything just deep. I'd love to see him use that speed in space, maybe with some short catches as well, because he's a big dude to bring down.
Yeah, and I do think that the Colts just need to trust Alec Pierce in those situations as well. If he's one-on-one with a guy deep, throw it up to him.
Yeah,
He has a volleyball background. His brother played at least Division I basketball. Like he's a fantastic athlete that can climb the ladder. So he doesn't always have to be wide open. Throw it up to Alec Pierce. We saw yesterday with that one-handed catch, he can go up and grab the football. So I do think when you have Pierce one-on-one on the outside, sometimes just go throw it up to him and see what he can do with the ball in the air. I mean, you can also potentially get some defensive pass interference calls that might go your way as well. But to have that type of threat on your team is something that you needs to be used more. Alec Pierce right now, I think, is averaging 28 yards per reception. I'm pretty sure it's 28 yards per reception. Stats, Matt, if I'm wrong, let me know. But that is absurd. Obviously, it's probably not an average that can withstand the whole season. But that just tells you how successful Alec Pierce has been on the deep ball this year, Drake. And I think that has to continue because Adonai Mitchell hasn't established that part of his game yet. And I think Adonai Mitchell is definitely not as far along as we thought he was going to be. In part because Alec Pierce has been such a revelation. He had probably the best training camp out of any one of the wide receivers, and so far he's been the best in the regular season out of any one of the wide receivers. And credit to Alec Pierce for grinding, for not losing confidence, for continuing to work on his game and just waiting for his shot. And then finally this year, when he's gotten his shot, he's taken advantage of that. 28.3 yards per catch for Alec Pierce. It's absurd, and it makes this Colts offense better. It helps make it more explosive. You need this type of deep threat in your offense that's just not a part of Michael Pittman or Josh Downs' game. Alec Pierce is a great complement to those guys, and without that, I don't know where this Colts offense would be without Alec Pierce, which if you asked me to say that, or you told me I was saying that 12 months ago, I would have told you you're crazy. But Alec Pierce has certainly had a huge start to the year. And Drake, I think that's just going to continue. I don't know if it's going to be 28.3 yards per catch continue, but if, it wouldn't surprise me if Alec Pierce leads the league in yards per catch when the season's over.
Yeah, and you're talking about three things. I think that it does help to have, I know that Flacco doesn't take all the deep shots, but Flacco can still throw the ball deep. Richardson can throw the ball deep. And I think Shane Steichen has taken more of an approach and to put an emphasis on targeting number 14. And I think that all those things are just really playing out really well for the former Bearcat. All you can hope is that he can finish around that 45, 50, maybe 55 catch mark, probably even at the clip he's at now. When he inevitably just kind of dies down a bit with the yards per catch, he'll still probably eclipse 1,000 yards. I mean, he is absolutely just lighting it on fire with the deep shots. And now the only thing that's missing is maybe a few more volume catches.
Easily, he's on pace for his best season of his career. So Drake, week 5 is in the books. Obviously not great from this Colts defense if you want to even go that far, or you want to go farther than that. But this Colts offense did show some life. You're hoping that this Colts team can get healthy, where you can get Anthony Richardson back next week. We'll see about Jonathan Taylor as well. I've heard that Jonathan Taylor feels much better this week already, so we'll have to see if he ends up practicing. Kenny Moore and Kwity Paye, it would be a huge help as well. Obviously, DeForest Buckner coming back potentially in a couple of weeks. I think the overall, if you're looking for how the Colts can improve, it's really just getting healthy with their star players and the rest of the guys going out there and executing. You know, I think that's the most you can ask for, because the coaching staff isn't changing. There's not going to be outside pieces brought in that are likely going to help this team. It's going to be with what they've got here. It helps by getting healthy. It helps by these players going out there and executing. And then ultimately it'll help once Anthony Richardson settles down and the game starts slowing down for him a little bit, and he's able to be more accurate with the football, because when we saw that against the Steelers, he was settled down, the game was slowing down, he looked really good those first couple of drives. That's what you're looking for consistently throughout the game. But it's all on the Colts defense now. There's no more hiding it. Gus Bradley needs to be better. The players need to be better. This entire team needs to be better if they even want to sniff the playoffs later this year.
Yeah, and luckily it kind of sucks to be 0-2 in your division, right? And you're already, going right to Nissan Stadium, where the Titans fans are not going to give you any sort of love. So you cannot go 0-3 in your division, and you can't fall to 2-4. So the Colts are kind of at a crossroads right now. It's like, you played a good game, then you played an absolutely atrocious game, and we're talking about the defense here. Now you're going against a team that is really, really up in the air with QB, and both of these guys, Levis or Rudolph, you beat. And you beat them both last year. So we'll have to see if this is a bounce back game upcoming. But right now, you still kind of have to talk about the Jaguars' performance. In short, unsure, just completely unsure of the team, especially defensively.
Yeah, and so far, this Colts defense has been the team that quarterbacks get right against. So Will Levis hasn't had a great start to the year. And who knows? He might also throw for over 300 yards and a few touchdowns against this Colts defense. The Colts will have to prove us wrong on that one. But let's look at the injury report, and it's a lengthy one, Drake. It really is.
Sure.
Obviously, we already know all the guys that are on IR, and the Colts placed another one on IR. And this one really hurts. Will Fries obviously hurt his leg yesterday, got it rolled up under. The broadcast didn't even show a replay of the play because it was that bad. And he fractured his tibia, stayed overnight in a hospital down there in Jacksonville and had a procedure done on it. He did fly back to Indianapolis today, but the Colts immediately placed him on IR and his season is over. And that really sucks, Drake, because Will Fries was playing phenomenal football, and I mean phenomenal football. He was playing as one of the best guards in the entire NFL through the first 5 weeks of the season, and he's in a contract year, no less. So I don't think tonight's really the right time to talk about contract stuff with Will Fries, but I've spoken to him and some of his family members, going through the process of doing rookie files. Will Fries is just a fantastic person. He's a fantastic player, fantastic person. The guy works hard, loves football, so it couldn't have happened to a better guy, and that's what really stings. So wish Will Fries all the best, and hopefully he can rebound from this and come back next year and pick up right where he left off.
Yeah, and I'll tell you right now, our own Jake Arthur interviewed Tony Sperano Jr., and you want to hear how much Will Fries is loved in that building? Listen to his offensive line coach talk about him. Massive loss, but, we praised Dalton Tucker all off season, man, so now push comes to shove, baby. You got to fill in some big shoes because Will Fries, we're not going to talk about a contract, but he was on his way to another contract with the way he was playing.
And I think he probably still is now after what he showed this year. But Dalton Tucker came in yesterday and played well in Will Fries' stead. There's also the question of when Ryan Kelly comes back. Do you put Tanner Bortolini over there at guard? Tanner Bortolini has looked really good at center. I know he prefers to play center, but at Wisconsin, he played guard as well. So he has that flexibility. On the Colts depth chart, Dalton Tucker is listed as the lone backup to Will Fries, while Tanner Bortolini is listed as a backup to not only Ryan Kelly, but also to Quentin Nelson over there at that left guard spot. So we'll have to see kind of what happens. We won't know officially really until Ryan Kelly comes back into the starting lineup, whether Tanner Bortolini will slide over to guard or if they're going to roll with Dalton Tucker, but it's going to be one of those two guys. It's not going to be, as Matt says, don't make the Danny Pinter mistake talking about moving Tanner Bortolini over to guard. It's definitely not going to be Danny Pinter, I'll tell you that. Matt Gonzalez looks like he's entrenched as the swing tackle, so really he's not going to play guard. It's either going to be Bortolini or Tucker. At this point, I'd probably lean Tucker, but once Kelly comes back, we'll kind of have to see what happens. So obviously, Anthony Richardson did not play, still dealing with that oblique injury. He was questionable, then was downgraded to doubtful on Saturday, and then out inactive on Sunday. Just not there physically. And that did surprise me a little bit because it seemed like he was trending in the right direction. So obviously you hope he's out there on Sunday, as well as Jonathan Taylor with that ankle injury. Again, I said he's feeling a lot better this week. We'll see if he practices. He still has that high ankle sprain. So if he practices on Wednesday, that's a really good indication for Jonathan Taylor. Obviously, all of our eyes are going to be on Richardson and Taylor throughout the week.
Yeah, and look, you kind of saw what the approach was. Obviously, Jacksonville was terrible against the pass, but without Taylor, Sermon was under 4 yards a carry. Goodson didn't get very many carries at all. It's a lot different. The offense is way different without 28.
Yeah, exactly. Ryan Kelly's still dealing with that neck injury, Kwity Paye with the quad, and Kenny Moore II with the hip. All guys have a massive impact. All of those guys have a massive impact. I should say the sooner they can be back, the better this Indianapolis Colts team will be on both sides of the ball. Latest Colts news and rumors. We've got a few guys that were released, some signed to the practice squad. We mentioned it earlier. Dallas Flowers, after that pretty putrid performance against the Jaguars, I think he only played 15 defensive snaps and gave up 2 touchdowns. Yes, one of them was a miscommunication, but still, he was in the area. And I think on 7 targets all season, he's given up 7 receptions and a perfect quarterback rating. So not good out of Dallas Flowers. And unfortunately, we had high hopes for what he could do. And it wasn't good this year. Never fully recovered from that Achilles injury. That was obvious. And hopefully he is able to rebound and play somewhere, because Flowers is a good guy, but it wasn't working here in Indy. And the Colts made kind of sent a statement with, if you're that of accountability, when you play that poorly, you're not going to have a spot on the team.
Yeah, now you do have more. You have to now replace this cornerback because he was on your roster. So we'll see how the Colts do that. They have a couple practice squad guys they might be able to turn to.
Yeah, they do still have 2 roster spots open now, with Will Fries going to IR and Dallas Flowers gone. They have 2 open roster spots that they still do need to fill. The Colts signed cornerback Alex Johnson and kicker Spencer Schrader. So Schrader is back, both those guys to the practice squad. And then they released Trent Penix, the running back, and cornerback Gregory Jr. from the practice squad. So I would expect more moves this week, obviously, from this team, whether they do bring up another offensive lineman to replace Will Fries. Certainly a cornerback is going to be needed, because as of right now, you have 3 healthy cornerbacks. You have Jalen Jones, Sam Womack, and Chris Lamons. Those are your only 3 cornerbacks right now, because Kenny Moore is dealing with that hip injury. If he comes back, that certainly helps alleviate some things, but you need more help on the outside. And I know the Colts are going to be looking at all areas, practice squad, other teams' practice squads, free agent market. There's going to be a move made at cornerback this week.
Yeah, and that's going to be something to look out for, because they're going to have to play some roster gymnastics like they have been with all these injuries and stuff, just to make up a workable cornerback room for the Titans. And remember, I know the Titans are struggling, but they are playing, or they do have Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins, a couple of good veteran receivers.
Yeah, exactly. Stats Matt coming in here with some news. They also worked out Tariq Castro Fields, who hasn't necessarily worked out at cornerback yet, but he's been a good special teamer in his limited time. That could certainly be an option. It'd also be interesting because if Buckner is back in 2 weeks, then you lose a roster spot. I would think if Buckner is back, you're probably taking away someone like Adam Gotsis, who came in because of the Buckner injury or because of the Tyquan Lewis injury. That would, I think you would probably replace one of the defensive linemen with Buck. You've got plenty to choose from. That's for sure. And then finally, Drake, we got our Colts player of the game. Not exactly the best game to name a player of the game. There certainly won't be a single defender that we mention as the Colts player of the game. But who is your pick this week for Colts player of the game in the unfortunate loss to the Jaguars?
You know what? I'm just going to go with consistency here. I know it was only 7.7 yards per catch, but man, Josh Downs is just showing out as a safety blanket. I think that he's just he's going to have another big game soon. But man, the volume's there. 12 freaking targets. That's absolutely fantastic, and it's really cool to see number one come back from that injury and hit the ground running.
Yeah, that's a good one. He's been very, very consistent. Josh Downs, certainly since he came back from that injury, that high ankle sprain. Sean Cartwright is taking Alec Pierce. Stats Matt says Matt Gay because he didn't miss. Yeah, shout out to Matt Gay for not missing a field goal yesterday. Patrick, as always, Tanner Borcellini and Grant Stewart are tied for this week. So that was a good one. And then we've got Bruce. Bruce is going Alec Pierce as well. I'm with Sean and Bruce. I'm going Alec Pierce. I'm going Alec Pierce. 3 catches, 134 yards, and the touchdown was used way too late in that game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But when Flacco finally did start going his way, Alec Pierce dominated. Without Alec Pierce, the Colts don't even sniff returning to that game, even with the solid game out of Flacco. The Colts don't even sniff the win without Alec Pierce. So Alec Pierce, definitely my Colts player of the game. So not a pretty loss for the Indianapolis Colts. The offense certainly did their job, but the defense, a lot to work on, Drake. And you mentioned it, 0-2 in the division, and they've got another one this week on the road again, heading to Nashville to take on the Tennessee Titans. And while the Titans are 1-3, they're a dangerous team. They play the Colts tough. Every single AFC South matchup is going to be tough. And whether it's Mason Rudolph or Will Levis under center, like we said, it doesn't matter. Any cornerback can tear up this Colts defense. The defense has to be better if the Colts want a shot in this one.
Yeah, and you can't underestimate this team because they do have a couple of good running backs. They have veteran receivers. They've got a shifty tight end, and Brian Callahan has shown that. I mean, he's an absolute dog of a play caller. So I think that you absolutely cannot walk into this game light. You just walked into the game against the 31st ranked pass defense and still lost. So
exactly. And then before we get out of here, shout out to LaKendrick Snow for the 99-cent super chat. Hey, thank you so much for all of your support, brother. Really, really do appreciate it. And he did have a comment here. Can a common fan, I think he says, if a common fan access the all 22 game film? If you have an NFL Plus subscription, I think you can access it that way. That would probably be the best way to go about it. But we appreciate all of your support. And that's our show for tonight, guys. Really, as I was telling to LaKendrick, as I'm going to say to Patrick and Tom Brady for the super chats, we appreciate everyone's support joining in on a Monday to air out your frustrations for this Colts team. This is why we do the episode on Monday, so you can sleep on it, but still get out any remaining frustrations. And then Tuesday, you can start looking towards the Tennessee Titans. Be sure to go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts_SI, and to subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell and make sure you're subscribed and you turn those notifications on so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night. And if you can't catch us live, no worries. Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so you can reach other Colts fans, so we can reach other Colts fans just like you and you as well. So Drake, I know you've got plenty of pieces out there on horseshoehuddle.com. Tell the people what they need to go check out.
yeah, so a whole bunch of coverage on just what's been happening with the team, but I've got my risers and fallers, the good and bad, and the loss to the Jaguars. But I am going to have my 5 toughest questions that the Colts have to answer to succeed in 2024 here soon.
Make sure you check that out. And my game recap came out yesterday. Jake was busy, so I was the one with the game recap, gave my full analysis for the game. That's live on horseshoehuddle.com. And then tomorrow, I've got a piece on Shane Steichen's comments on Gus Bradley. He went to bat for the defensive coordinator. So we're going to dive into those and why he did make those comments, but why things have to change for Bradley if he wants a job here in the near future. So check that out as well as everything else on horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, and we'll be back Thursday night to get you all set for another AFC South matchup as the Colts take on the Titans. It's going to be a good one. So until then, Colts fans, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you right back here on Thursday night. Take it easy.